Well, we're starting this off on the wrong foot. Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. Welcome to my review for the Power Rangers Dino Charge Blue Ranger Lightning Collection figure. And as you can see, we started off on, as I mentioned, the wrong foot. Before I even started the review, his foot broke off rather easily. And I guess I've heard this has been a fairly common problem with this figure. At least I've seen a couple people. Not necessarily the foot. I saw somebody break his leg. I was honestly hoping that wouldn't happen to me. And then, lo and behold, within a minute of owning it, the foot popped off. So before we get to anything else about the review, we're going to have a lot to talk about in regards to Lightning Collection figure quality. Effectively what happened is, you can see they're on this little bit of a hinge here, and I don't know if you've ever had that before. I've had this with several different figures, whether it be Power Rangers figures or Marvel, Star Wars, what have you, where it's a little bit warped or like slid so that you have this gap here. So it was kind of looking like this, more or less. And it was kind of just floating here, which obviously looked weird, but he couldn't stand. And I've had problems like that before, and it can be really annoying, and I was trying to figure out, like, okay, is it just the hinge or is it a little bit warped? Because I've had it be a little bit of both before. And unfortunately, I had a figure very recently, I think it was a Star Wars figure, I'm fairly certain it was a Star Wars figure, that had a similar problem. And I applied quite a bit of force to it and moved it back, and it locked back into place. It was able to stand, and it loosened it up, thankfully, and I was able to use the figure normally after that. Now with this one, I was hoping to have a similar case. Unfortunately, that obviously didn't work out, and I actually did not apply too much pressure, as I wasn't 100% sure yet, and I was just kind of testing it, and I just kind of pressed it a little bit, nowhere near as hard as I had pressed the foot on that Star Wars figure to get it back into place, and it snapped off very easily. So it's definitely a feeling of cheapness to it. And that kind of happened right when I picked this figure up, even before I had gotten it out of the packaging, or not, even before I had gotten out of the packaging, I was like, I sense a disturbance in the force, like a cheap figure is about to come out of here. No, but even before I broke the foot is what I meant to say. I could tell that the leg joints were very loose on this. Like, this figure felt very cheap. To be honest, all the figures in this wave, I don't know if this figure is coming out first for the wave of reviews for this, but all the figures in this wave, except for maybe the Putrid, which felt okay, have had a feeling of cheapness to them. But this one in particular, like, it wasn't like, oh, these are kind of loose, so this figure might become loose someday. Like, this was straight up probably one of the cheapest Lightning Collection figures I've ever had, unfortunately. I mean, if we're setting that aside, look-wise, he's got some okay bits. I would say the only area he looks kind of cheap in is the belt looks a little bit cheap, and you kind of have this weird double artifacting going on. But everything else looks honestly okay. Like, the sash is kind of bright and vibrant. I like the silver on there. It pops nicely. It overall flows nicely. I think the head sculpt's really well done. I think both the paint and the proportions look well done. I mean, honestly, it's overall fine look-wise. I can't remember Dino Charge's inconsistencies. I feel like there's one of them that's like missing an eye paint here or something. There's some sort of inconsistency, but there was nothing particular look-wise that I clocked. Like, look-wise, he's fine. The only other thing I really wanted to mention is usually in these reviews I do comparisons, but the things worth noting for comparison for this are obviously the Figuarts and the Action Hero. You know, the Figuart is going to be a little bit of a higher quality when it comes to paint, but a little bit too skinny. It's kind of hard to judge with this, though, because I feel the Figuarts have felt cheaper over time, and those ones felt cheap, but my Figuart also didn't break. But I do also have a problem with the mold being too skinny, and this is one of those ones where the helmet feels too skinny. The Action Hero is a little bit of that PR old school muscliness, and I'm going to try to put up some pictures of some old footage. But those figures honestly weren't half bad, to be honest. Like, they had a little bit of that PR muscle bulk, but they weren't as bad as other figures in the past. Like, honestly, if I wasn't a completionist and collecting the Lightning Collection, if I had all 5 Action Hero Dino Fury figures, I would honestly be fine with those being the main representation for my collection. You know, but that's really kind of a moot point at this point, because it's kind of a moot point. It's like a cow's opinion. But, you know, because it was a horrible feeling figure and the foot broke off. I'm hoping to be able to exchange it or get a different one or something, but yeah, that's disappointing. I mean, it has all your same articulation, your ball joint here, your knee joint. I don't even want to move it around. What if I break it again some more? A hinge joint, ball joint at the chest. He can't stand on his foot. You have a head joint here, or head and neck joint here with a ball joint on his arm here for some movement, swiveling here, he can't stand on his foot. Elbow joint here, swiveling here, he can't stand on his foot. So your standard articulation, but, you know, this is what happened. Let's talk about accessories a little bit. You know, you got your classic lightning effect that I'm going to throw into a Ziploc bag and not care about later. You have your 2 weapons right here, which are pretty much, I think, as painted as the other ones. I don't remember if there was ever any more detailed Dino Charge weapons that were painted better, but these, honestly, this is fine for me. This is hardly from a huge problem. It's nicer when the weapons do look nicer depending on what they are, but if I'm being honest, I would much rather have a figure that feels solid and the foot doesn't break, and if the weapons look half painted, that's honestly fine. You know, so long as they look like this, which is kind of close to the way they look compared to like an all gray or white or black plastic like a basic figure, that's fine with me. if that could sort of balance the quality and price, no big deal. Figures wise, hands wise, he's got the 2 closed fists on him, and then you have 2 holding weapons hands right here. And then what's really nice though is a bit of a deep cut here, which is kind of cool. For the head, they included the one from Warg World. Just kind of a weirder lightning review because it was more so just addressing, you guys know that I can seem more lenient on the Lightning Collection. And I guess to a degree I am, only because I'm only looking for it to be fine. And I think that the Lightning Collection is kind of tough for me to talk about when it comes to criticism, because I have some legitimate criticisms when it comes to individual figures and the line at large. But at the same time, I feel that it gets drowned out by a lot of people nitpicking at stuff that I would consider to be non-problems, and a lot of people saying stuff like, well, they didn't paint this belt, so clearly they're trying to kill the brand on purpose. And that's just like nonsense. And so it's hard for me to talk about because it's like I have legit criticisms, and I think other people do, and there is valid criticisms, but it gets drowned out by the toxic noise. But this is absolutely one of the worst experiences I've had with a Lightning figure. If this didn't have the loose feeling or the broken foot, honestly, it would be an okay release. I think look-wise, pretend his foot's there. Look-wise, I'm mostly happy with it. At least that's a thing. I don't know what everyone's experience has been like. I'm going to try to replace it. We'll have to see then. But yeah, keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for that. I've seen myself and multiple others have brittle problems with this in particular. I don't know about any of the other ones in the wave. Again, it's felt like a cheap wave to me, but at least none of the other ones have broke. But that's at least worth noting. Again, I have noticed the waning quality, guys. It hasn't gone unnoticed by me. But this wave has been one of the cheapest ones I've felt overall. Like, there's always little nitpicks here and there, but this is the first one where it felt across the board like a weird step down in certain areas. But yeah, that's about it for this one, guys. I'm going to go fit this guy for a prosthetic foot. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can get notifications for my videos. DawsonRider, signing out. So I got a bit of an after credit scene here for this one, for yet another broken figure from this wave. Honestly, my Izzy figure seemed mostly fine. Like, she had a little bit of a loose joint problems around the chest, which wasn't too huge of a deal, and I had already kind of messed around with the figure and been ready for the review, and I was getting ready for it, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to actually start the review with her regular helmet because I want to compare it to the basic figure, because I had some points to make about that. So I just, pulled on the head a little bit so I could switch out the heads. Again, not using an enormous amount of force unless this is all some sort of scene in the movie where you find out you have super strength because you do things too extra, but I don't think that's the case. Again, not a lot of force, and this whole mechanism popped out, and it creates kind of like this crack here where it opened up this whole little square mechanism that I had no idea was even there. So yeah, this wave is really brittle. I'm not going to be doing a, hey, this is broken figure review for Izzy, because when I get the replacement, I do want to do a regular review and talk about some of the comparisons to the basic figure, because the basic figure isn't as easy to get. But yeah, this is definitely one of the worst waves in regards to quality. So this is going to kind of be a Koda plus Izzy's problems review. But anyways, guys, that's it for this one.